Over the past few months, the challenges we've faced have unexpectedly brought us closer as a family. It's been an incredibly difficult time for all of us, but I've been fortunate to have an exceptional medical team who has cared for me with great dedication. Through it all, Prince William, always poised even under intense public scrutiny, was visibly moved by an emotional moment involving their daughter, Princess Charlotte. There were no scandals, no elaborate ceremonies, just a single, deeply touching moment that resonated throughout the palace and left even the most seasoned insiders in stunned silence. Whispers spread rapidly. What had they witnessed? What had shifted in their once playful little girl to stir such profound emotion? It wasn't about royalty or media attention, it was something much more intimate and powerful. That moment marked a turning point, the beginning of something no one had anticipated. No one could have predicted what Princess Charlotte did that day, nor could they hold back the tears it provoked. In a world where control is paramount, that one moment shattered all royal composure. According to insiders, Charlotte didn't simply behave differently, she transformed. There was no forewarning, no rehearsal. Kate's eyes welled up first, followed by William's quiet, uncontainable emotion. In that fleeting instant, they weren't the future king and queen, they were simply parents, witnessing their daughter grow into someone extraordinary. What moved them wasn't a duty or a title, but a raw, genuine confidence that came from within her. Charlotte's transformation unfolded before everyone's eyes, effortless, uncoached, and powerful. In that moment, it became clear that she was no longer a child in need of protection. She was rising, stronger, faster, and with more grace than anyone had dared to imagine. It was an emotional revelation, the start of a change that would send ripples through the royal family in ways no one could have foreseen. Sometimes, a father's pride is conveyed in a single glance, and for Prince William, that glance spoke volumes. In a world where royal obligations often eclipse personal emotion, he found himself silently torn between tradition and the raw reality of watching his daughter come into her own. Preparing Charlotte for her future role has never been just about duty, it's also about witnessing the emergence of a quiet, unstoppable spirit. Though William rarely expresses his deepest feelings publicly, those close to him have seen it, in fleeting smiles, gentle touches, and the soft nickname he calls her, Mignonette, meaning small and sweet. It's a private language between father and daughter, a quiet thread woven from pride, love, and the bittersweet awareness of how swiftly time passes. Even at official events, the signs are there for those who know where to look, like William's steady gaze, always following her, always present. As Charlotte confidently greets the officials, curtsying with grace, William responds with a quiet nod, leaning in slightly as she speaks, his body language revealing that every word she says holds more weight to him than anything else in the room filled with dignitaries and flashing cameras. It is a silent exchange that speaks volumes, the bond between a father and daughter at a turning point. William sees not just a princess, but his little girl stepping into a world that demands far more than polished appearances, it calls for strength, poise, and heart. Each of Charlotte's gestures becomes a bittersweet reminder that the days of hand-holding and whispered encouragements are slipping away. Their interaction transcends royal protocol and public performance, it reflects something deeper and far more personal. William recognizes the emotional complexity of this moment, one that many parents face, yet few with such public weight. His pride in Charlotte carries a quiet sorrow, an understanding of what lies ahead. He is deeply proud, yet fully aware of the cost of that crown, the burden of growing up under the gaze of history and expectation, where every proud smile also carries the weight of letting go. At public events, the subtle gestures William directs toward Charlotte speak volumes. Each glance and touch is layered with unspoken wishes that she might stay innocent just a little longer, that time might slow for her. Yet Charlotte, with her natural poise and fearless eyes, strides forward with unwavering confidence. With every step she takes, William's heart swells with pride and aches with the inevitable passage of time. It's in the quiet, easily overlooked moments that his deepest emotions emerge, a gentle hand on her back as she weaves through a crowd, a protective look when she fields a reporter's question with surprising composure, or a shared laugh when no one else is watching. These are more than fatherly instincts, they're fragments of a bond built not on royal expectation, but on something far more enduring, trust and unconditional love. The emotional weight of watching Charlotte grow cannot rest solely on William's shoulders, it subtly transforms their entire family, influencing how they navigate a world that constantly watches and judges. Amid the formality of royal life, William clings to something no training could ever teach: raw, human connection. But he wasn't alone in witnessing this change. Kate, too, was about to feel the shift in her heart. Behind every composed princess stands a mother who quietly shaped her strength, and Kate Middleton was that steady hand. In a world obsessed with perfection, under the relentless scrutiny of cameras and critics, she was the silent architect of her daughter's wings. Kate's approach to motherhood was never about grandeur or royal protocol, it was about grounding her daughter, Charlotte, in something far more meaningful. While it might have been easy for her to raise Charlotte behind palace walls, Kate and William made a deliberate choice to manage their family life privately, doing everything they could to protect their young children from the intense public gaze. One particularly touching moment unfolded during a visit to the Chelsea Flower Show. Charlotte wasn't simply tagging along, instead, Kate used the opportunity to quietly pass on lessons of kindness, courage, and resilience. The impact was visible in William's eyes. He understood that Charlotte's true protection wouldn't come from status or security but from the strength of character built from within. Kate's parenting was never about teaching public speaking lines or mastering royal etiquette. It was about helping her children know who they are when no one is watching. At school drop-offs, Kate would dress simply, blend into the crowd, and disappear among other parents. Her subtle message to Charlotte was clear: you are one of them, you belong here, not just behind golden gates. Even in the spotlight, her parenting remained quiet yet powerful. Take Wimbledon, for example. When Charlotte appeared overwhelmed by the magnitude of the event, Kate didn't scold or correct her. Instead, she gently tucked a strand of hair behind her daughter's ear and whispered a few calming words, just enough, just in time. It was a moment that spoke volumes. Charlotte didn't grow taller because she was told to, she stood taller because she was deeply loved. Kate wasn't shaping a flawless princess, she was nurturing a strong, emotionally grounded girl capable of standing on her own, with or without a tiara. That kind of strength didn't emerge by chance, it was forged through countless unseen sacrifices. These sacrifices weren't about preparing Charlotte for a crown, but about protecting her from the world's harsh glare, and raising her to become someone with resilience and self-worth. It meant making choices that drew criticism, whispers in playgrounds, pressure from those eager to see Charlotte step into the spotlight with more grandeur and urgency. But Kate held firm. She understood what many forget: a title might open doors, but only a strong spirit can walk through them. Through Kate's steady and quiet guidance, Charlotte wasn't molded into a polished emblem of royalty, but into a real, grounded young girl. Her poise, admired by many today, wasn't crafted by royal tutors or media consultants, it was born in everyday spaces, schoolyards, living rooms, gardens, and in the intimate, whispered moments only a mother and daughter share. It was a bond built on trust, love, and the courage to protect what truly mattered. Just when Kate believed she had seen every side of her daughter, Princess Charlotte's next public appearance would reveal something entirely unexpected. During what was intended to be a simple family outing, Charlotte unveiled a side of herself that took everyone by surprise, even her own parents. The Chelsea Flower Show, typically a display of grandeur and tradition rather than pivotal life moments, became the unlikely stage for a transformation that echoed through the royal family and beyond. What began as a quiet appearance quickly evolved into a defining chapter in Charlotte's story, one that left William and Kate confronting a profound realization: their daughter was no longer the little girl they once knew. From the moment Charlotte stepped into the garden, it was evident that something had shifted. She didn't merely follow her parents or linger in their shadows. Instead, she moved with a quiet confidence that hushed nearby conversations and turned heads. Engaging with designers, asking thoughtful questions, and listening with an attentiveness far beyond her years, Charlotte carried herself with an innate sense of belonging, not as an extension of royalty, but as an individual in her own right. For William and Kate, seasoned figures in the public eye, it was a disarming experience. In a silent yet powerful glance exchanged between them, they acknowledged the unmistakable truth: their daughter was growing into a presence all her own. They were witnessing a new chapter unfold, one that wasn't staged or carefully crafted for the cameras, but something genuine and unfiltered. It was a raw, poignant moment as Charlotte crossed an invisible threshold, shifting subtly yet profoundly from a playful child to a composed young royal. Neither William nor Kate could stop the pace of change, and the realization struck them harder than they had imagined. William, who had long worked to shield his children from the burdens of royalty, now felt the future rushing in faster than he was ready to accept. Kate, who had fiercely protected Charlotte's innocence, experienced a complex blend of pride and sorrow as she watched her daughter grow, not just older, but into her own light. A light strong enough to shine independently, even under the heavy shadow of centuries of royal tradition. Soon, quiet murmurs began echoing through the palace halls. Staff who had known Charlotte since she was a baby shared glances filled with recognition. Advisors, once focused solely on George, began turning their attention toward Charlotte with fresh curiosity. Even veteran royal observers couldn't ignore what was happening. Something remarkable was unfolding, and far more quickly than anyone had predicted. Charlotte's transformation at the Chelsea Flower Show didn't need formal announcements or ceremonial flair. It was evident in her quiet poise and presence, speaking volumes without a single word. Princess Charlotte's evolution into a poised young royal didn't begin with pomp or spectacle, it began with quiet confidence. She carried herself with a composed grace, meeting every gaze without flinching and stepping slightly ahead of her parents without being prompted. It wasn't rebellion against royal norms, it was a quiet reimagining of them. From that moment on, subtle but powerful shifts began to ripple through the palace and the public. It's often not the grand ceremonies but the understated milestones that bring lasting change. Charlotte's journey wasn't shaped by headlines or coronations, but by simple, meaningful moments that left a lasting imprint on both her family and the monarchy. While the world looked on, often without realizing it, Charlotte was quietly authoring her own story, one silent victory at a time. Her first significant step came when she transitioned from the familiar security of Wilcox's nursery to the more public environment of Thomas's Battersea. More than a change of uniform or teachers, it marked her entrance into a world of expectations, cameras, and public scrutiny. Yet she stepped into it with an almost unshakable calm, no clinging hands or nervous glances, just a quietly determined spirit meeting the world on her own terms. Each public appearance added another layer to her evolving path. Her once shy waves at royal events grew into gestures of certainty, not mere mimicry but genuine embodiment of royal grace. Amid the flashing cameras and cheering crowds, Charlotte never appeared overwhelmed. In fact, she seemed to grasp, perhaps more deeply than others realized, that these weren't performances, they were affirmations of her growing identity. No moment captured her transformation more profoundly than the day the world bid farewell to Queen Elizabeth II. Surrounded by solemn faces, ceremonial traditions, and symbols of royal legacy, Charlotte stood small in size but immense in grace. Her perfectly timed curtsy, filled with a maturity well beyond her years, cut through the weight of the occasion. It wasn't merely an act of respect, it was a powerful moment of acceptance, of history, of duty, and of the responsibility she was quietly beginning to shoulder. William and Kate's pride wasn't broadcast from balconies or spoken in interviews, it was felt, deeply and unmistakably, in that one extraordinary moment. It was evident in their eyes, in the way they looked at Charlotte, as if seeing her for the first time again. There was a bittersweet pride in their gaze, a delicate blend of joy and sorrow, knowing their daughter was venturing further into a world that often demanded more than innocence could afford. Every milestone she reached marked another quiet farewell to the simpler life they had tried to preserve for her. Yet, these moments were not isolated, they wove together into something much greater, a quiet, living transformation captured in stolen glances and fleeting expressions behind palace walls and ceremonial grandeur. Each step Charlotte took was not just movement, but a poignant symbol of the future drawing closer. Within the walls of Kensington, her presence was felt far more deeply than any public event could convey. She wasn't becoming a figure of spectacle, but rather someone whose growth was lived in her posture, her poise, her unspoken understanding. Among her siblings, it was Charlotte who stood out, not by dominance, but by her quiet confidence. She had an instinctive way of calming situations before they spiraled, a presence that soothed without demanding attention. Palace staff, who had observed countless subtle moments, fondly called her the Louis Whisperer. Prince Louis, with his boundless energy that sometimes bordered on chaos, would often be calmed by just a glance, a gentle hand squeeze, or a whispered joke from Charlotte. And in those moments, he would find his footing again. It was a rare gift, an unspoken leadership far beyond her years. Even Prince George, the future king, often looked to his sister for reassurance when the pressures of public life bore down. Charlotte led not with force, but with grace, a quiet, steady presence that spoke volumes. Charlotte's steady gaze and calm demeanor provided a grounding influence, especially for George. If Charlotte moved forward, George followed; if she held her ground, so did he. This dynamic, subtle and nearly imperceptible to the outside world, was unmistakable within the royal family. Charlotte wasn't just supporting her brothers, she was setting a tone for a new generation. William and Kate observed closely, recognizing that Charlotte's quiet leadership was not something to control or mold, but rather something to protect and nurture. This realization began to influence their approach to parenting, fostering a greater trust in their children. They allowed them to navigate small challenges on their own, encouraging emotional intelligence over rigid protocol. Charlotte's strength didn't just lift her siblings, it began to reshape the very foundation of modern royal upbringing. Her hidden role within the family revealed a crucial truth that many overlooked: leadership isn't always about standing at the front or wearing a crown. Sometimes, it's about knowing when to listen, when to act, and when to simply be the calm in someone else's storm. Charlotte was mastering this art with a grace that even the most seasoned royals might envy. Inside the palace, a more significant transformation was unfolding, one that no one had expected. The path ahead for Princess Charlotte wasn't just royal, it was revolutionary. In a palace bound by centuries of tradition, where every move had long been determined by birthright and duty, William and Kate were daring to imagine something radically different for their daughter. They understood that the world their children would inherit would be vastly different from the one their ancestors ruled. It would demand more than titles, it would require resilience, wisdom, and the freedom to forge new paths rather than follow the ones laid before them. Behind the formalities of royal life, quiet preparations were underway. These weren't rehearsals for endless ceremonies or lessons in outdated etiquette, but real training for a future far beyond the palace walls. Charlotte is reportedly being introduced to a set of skills that go beyond the traditional royal curriculum, skills that empower her to navigate the modern world with confidence. These include tactical driving for safety, international relations to navigate the evolving landscape of diplomacy, and critical thinking courses designed to hone her instincts, rather than dull them with rote tradition. William and Kate are not just preparing Charlotte to make ceremonial appearances, they are preparing her to stand firm in a world that won't hand her success simply because of her royal status. Their goal is to raise a young woman who can choose her own path, a princess who will not be confined to a life dictated solely by history. If Charlotte ever dreams of a future beyond royal service, whether in humanitarian work, diplomacy, or another direction, her parents are committed to ensuring she has the tools, courage, and most importantly, the freedom to pursue it. This isn't rebellion, it's evolution, quietly and powerfully breaking free from the rigid molds that once confined royal children. In giving Charlotte this freedom, William and Kate are not only preparing one child for the future, they are setting a new precedent. They are showing that a royal legacy need not be a chain, it can be a foundation, a springboard for a richer, more meaningful life filled with choice, authenticity, and purpose. While this shift may not yet be fully understood by outsiders, the changes are already beginning to ripple through the royal family. For Charlotte, the future is no longer a narrow path of ceremonial duties, it's an open horizon, waiting for her to shape it according to her own vision. She will carry the weight of her heritage, yes, but it will not define or constrain her. She will honor the crown, but she will never be owned by it. Amid all the training, responsibilities, and dreams, one thing remains constant: the heart of a little girl still discovering her place in the world. From a playful child to a poised young royal, Princess Charlotte's journey is more than just a royal tale, it's a human one. Beneath the crowns, the ceremonies, and the polished appearances, lies the story of a little girl growing, evolving, and quietly revolutionizing the very notion of what it means to be royal. What began as a series of quiet milestones has become a force that even the most seasoned royals can't ignore. And in the end, it wasn't the titles or traditions that captured the world's attention, but the raw emotional journey of growth, resilience, and quiet revolution led by William and Kate. Charlotte's journey was never solely about preparing her for her responsibilities, it was about safeguarding her spirit, cultivating her inner strength, and steering her toward a future where she could stand proudly both as a royal and as an individual. With bittersweet pride, they watched as she grew, each step marked by newfound confidence, every graceful stride a testament to her courage, and each curtsy a reflection of her unwavering poise.